Whitney's a person of many talents, and I'm going to begin by asking Emily Rose Tucker, who's a member of our music faculty, to come up and say a little bit about Whitney's contribution to the music program.
Do you all see me? First of all, Whitney, I'm going to begin by reading a letter that I will hand to you after this that Professor Spataro wrote for you, and she asked me to read it to you and to present it to you. And so I'll begin there. Dear Whit, I am sorry that I am not there in person to say these words to you, but you are aware of where I am right now. She's in the chapel warming up the choirs and the handbells. At least once in every educator's career, a student comes along who makes a special connection, and there is a mutual enrichment of the lives involved. You have been that student in my life. For the past 4 years, I have been blessed to have you in every one of my performing ensembles and every academic class I teach. You are not only a wonderful and inquisitive student, but a wonderfully inquisitive student who posed questions and made observations to my delight in your peers' awe. Of course, you know I must talk about music theory class. I will never forget how, after I would explain several different ways to solve a music theory problem, you would sit and look at seemingly puzzled, and after a few moments would say, "Could it be done this way?" At which point you would guide me down the paths of your thought process that only a sax player could navigate, to the final outcome, which, to my amazement, worked. Another story I will recall was when Emily and I were outside discussing how to transpose between two instruments that were not in concert pitch, a confusing task. You joined our conversation and immediately said, "Oh, this is how I do it." At which point you whipped out a piece of paper and proceeded to draw a chart which solved the problem. Emily and I simply looked at each other and said, "Genius." I could continue with many stories like this, but the banquet must end before the Holy Week service, or you won't be there to do what you do so well, make music. You will be sorely missed by your peers and definitely by me. However, I know without a doubt that you will go on to do great things because that is who you are inside. My very best wishes go with you always. With warmest regards, Sue. And having read that, I know that you know Sue has covered a number of things that are special about you, but I'm going to talk to the group about a few other things. I know many of you have had the privilege of working with Whitney and studying with Whitney, and there are, as I was thinking about what I wanted to say about somebody who has so much to contribute, there are 3 things that I think make Whitney stand out in my mind above many of her peers, and certainly stand out as a person who we will miss very much at Ferrum College. The first is the pursuit of excellence. Obviously, Whitney, you are constantly in pursuit of excellence. Whitney is always in the library, she's always researching, she's always practicing. She is a dedicated musician, student, scholar, and her achievements speak to that. That's not necessarily all of that unique, but combining that with selflessness, I think, is unusual. Sometimes in our pursuit of excellence, it's difficult for us to be selfless with our peers and in our classes. Whitney sometimes would come to a rehearsal where she didn't need the rehearsal on a piece of music or on a concert we were playing. Whitney knew the music, but she came every day, even if she had other things to do, so that she could be a leader, a guide. She would pull out a different instrument and say, "Here, let me help you," to another student. That kind of selflessness and dedication to the group that she's working with, I think, is what makes her pursuit of excellence so wonderful. Because not everyone has the ability to do that, to put personal needs aside and say, "I will be better because this group is better." And I think that's one of the things that's really special about you, Whitney, is I've never heard you say, "No, I can't do this for you." And I think that's awesome. That having been said, I think you're very true to yourself. And I've heard Whitney over the years reading poems at coffee houses and saying, "You know, I think that perhaps this major, this academic pursuit is not for me. I'm going to set my sights in a different direction." And because she's multi-talented and fascinating in a number of ways, she has the ability to do that. But she's true to herself and honest with herself. And I think we all can admire that in you, that perhaps over the course of your lifetime you will be involved in and excel at a number of different things, but that, I think, is going to serve you well. And the third thing that I want to talk about, and I won't go on too long, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking for a long time, is your spirit of inquiry. Whitney, and I know many of you are this way, is one of those students who walks into a classroom and you think, oh, someone who is going to challenge, to engage, to pursue whatever it is that we're studying in a way that contributes to the knowledge of the community of scholars, I think. But you also challenge your professors, your peers, and you bring your skills and expertise and what you gain every day from your education into the classroom. And then you formulate questions, find out the answers, and from those answers you create new questions. And I think that really is what education is. We can't teach anyone who is not curious. And you, Whitney, are curious about a lot of things. And I am so pleased to have been a part of this journey for you. And I wish you the very best in everything you do. And I will miss you in the jazz band. But best to you, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know that there's anything I'm going to say that Emily didn't already say, but perhaps I'll say it slightly differently. I want to begin by saying how pleased I am that Whitney's family is here with us this evening, both sets of Whitney's grandparents and Whitney's parents, Ronald and Martha Scott, and her sister Michaela. We're very happy to have all of you with us. We know that no student succeeds alone. And we know that all students bring a vast network of support from family and friends. We know that her success is your success. And so we're happy to be able to share this occasion with you. My first really vivid memory of Whitney, this is not when I met Whitney, but my first really vivid memory was during the, I guess, second semester of her freshman year, when she came to me after the first day of English 102 class and said, I'm not going to be able to stay in this class with these people, they're driving me nuts. I think those of you who are honor students have probably all, maybe unfortunately, had this experience of being in a group of people who you realize are not as serious as you are, not as ambitious as you are, who may even make fun of your ambition or your curiosity or your desire to achieve. And it was that kind of experience for Whitney. It was a group of students who were, sitting in the room making catty comments before the professor came in, and so we had to sort of troubleshoot and figure out ways that Whitney could meet with the professor outside class and get through that particular experience. And I think that was my first realization of the fact that Whitney was going to challenge us, maybe more than we were going to challenge her. Whitney and I have had maybe 4 or 5 classes together now. She's certainly been a leader in all of those classes, and I think my faculty colleagues in the room probably use a technique similar to the one I'm about to describe, and that is when we're going to have presentations by students in our classes, we try to steer the students who are the academic leaders into the first or second slot, because we know that they will set the standard and that they will make clear what the expectations are, because they will exceed them in their presentations. And I had the experience of having a student articulate that once when Whitney gave the first presentation in the class, and toward the end of the class another student looked at her and then looked at me and said, "Do you expect the rest of us to do that also?" And I'm afraid I didn't answer the question honestly, because frankly I probably don't expect most other students to meet the standard that Whitney sets. But I had the experience, starting actually last summer and in the fall semester, of undertaking an independent study with Whitney in literature of feminist dystopias. A dystopia, you probably know, is the opposite of a utopia. It's a society in which things are going very badly and spiraling downward. And Whitney, it turned out, was particularly interested in dystopias in which very conservative religious beliefs play a part.